Hey, what's up? This is Jason Bittner from Shadows Fall and Overkill, and you are listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with Jane's addiction.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, and downtown Davenport, Iowa. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Jason Bittner, drummer for Overkill.
And Shadows Fall, promoting Overkill's 20th studio album, Scorched, and Shadows Fall, I guess. What?
Back in the studio.
Yeah. After, 10 years or something like that? Yeah. So, great interview. Let's get to it.
All right, good night.
Good night. Jason, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce to you my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Jason, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, hey, man, we're so excited to have you. Thanks for the correspondence, and thank you for your willingness to participate tonight.
No problem. Sorry it took a while.
Oh, no problem, man. So, hey, this past April, Overkill released the band's 20th studio album, Scorched. Can you talk a bit more about the creation process for this album?
Yeah, it was definitely, let's just say it was drastically different from the last one due to the fact that the one before it, The Wings of War, we weren't doing during a pandemic. So everything that we did with that album, as far as the pre-production goes, like, for the most part, Dee Dee will come up with some song ideas and some rough demos and send it back over to me and Dave, and eventually, we'll rehash the stuff out back and forth electronically, but eventually we get to a point where we all, meet in Jersey for a week and do pre-production and really, hone the songs in before we go in the studio. And that's been, the MO for years, and that even before I was in the band, but that's what we did with Wings of War. But with Scorched, there was no opportunity for that. As it stands, we literally got sent home from tour 2 days before the end, when the pandemic was, basically when they shut everything down and sent us home. And that was literally 2 days at the end of the last dates of the Wings of War tour. So we're so close to finishing the album cycle. And if there was nothing going on, we would have went home and, immediately probably started working on demos after, a few months later, and probably, getting to the demo process maybe 6 to 8 months after we got off the road. But we all know that wasn't the case.
Exactly.
2020. So So we had some demos that were together when the pandemic first hit, and I think, you know, we knew that there was other bands. We knew that there was some of our friends' bands and stuff, other people that everybody was just moving forward. Well, let's just write music and do what you can through the pandemic. But we were like, well, it's kind of hard to plot out for a tour cycle if there's no touring that's going to be happening, or if you don't even know if the world's going to even be open. Yeah. So the timeline that we were on initially, we basically kind of shut that down, and we were like, why are we even trying to rush to get this timeline together? Because this might, you know, what's the point of having a record out in April if the world doesn't open back up until November? You
exactly.
know, people are going to forget about it. You know, 6 months down the road, you know, they're not going, oh yeah, that's right, you recorded a record you released a record 6 months ago, but now you're going to tour for it. So we erred on the side of, let's just take some more time with it, which in hindsight was good, because there was some, you know, there was some other things going on between, you know, band members' personal lives and stuff, and everybody handling the pandemic and other all outside other bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
That it was probably good that we had some more time to get things together, because I know that things weren't going as quick as possible for Blitz on Blitz's end as far as getting lyrics and vocal ideas together, because he kept coming up with ideas, but then he kept scrapping them. So like I said, I really think it was good that we took some more time and waited it out. But once we got to that point of like, all right, well, it looks like things are going to start to open back up. Let's kind of, you know, let's at least get the drum tracks recorded. So we finished up demoing, and basically all we said was, well, this is what it's going to be. We weren't able to do that. Let's get in a room and jam, because, you know, Dave couldn't fly up from Florida. I mean, I could have drove to Jersey from New York, but, you know, we're talking, you know, it would take Dave 7 days just to drive up for a rehearsal. So we basically just said, well, we got these songs together the way they're going to be, and I'm going to go cut the drums. And if anything is going to change, I either needed to have alternate drum parts where maybe I would do some sections longer in case we needed more time for vocals or whatever, or, you know, anticipating anything that might have been possible, so we had our bases covered, rather than, you know, you go in and do the 10 songs, 10, 11 songs, whatever it is, mm-hmm. and then you tear all the mics down, and then, oh, we wanted to add this part. Well, the drums are done, and, you know, that's it. So we try to just cover all of our bases with that, and slowly pick away at the music. And then the next thing you know, Blitz was, you know, coming up with song after song as far as the vocal ideas. Like, once he hit his stride, it was just pretty smooth sailing after that.
Oh, very good.
There was a few songs that he had that were together, and then once, you know, he kind of hit the pace that was good for him, and once, like, it wasn't like a writer's block or anything like that. It was just, like I said, a constant state of reworking because of, you know, we were taking the time with the record, so we wanted to make sure it was, you know, as absolutely tip top as it could be, let's say. So I don't know, I even forget where I was going with it. The point was 2 years later and a pandemic later, the finished product, in my opinion, is pretty damn good for what we were up against, and I think it really surprised all of us how well it came out.
It's fantastic.
Oh yeah.
The end result.
Well, yeah, the title track and opening track, Scorched. It's a killer track. You guys did a promotional video for that one. Did you guys cut that right away before the pandemic, or did you guys wait until after?
Oh, God, no. We shot Scorched like fucking 2 months ago, something like that.
Awesome.
We just, I can't even, like, keep track of time or anything. It's June 14th. We went to Europe in April. We shot that video somewhere. It was either the end of March or it was right before we went on tour.
Oh, cool.
Oh, very good. Won't Be Coming Back is my favorite track on Scorched. It has like a non-traditional Overkill sound to it. What caused the band to kind of slow things down for this track? Is there a certain story behind it?
Favorite song on the album?
I do. I like it.
And I'm not. It's not to say that I dislike the song, but a lot of people seem to like this song. I guess it's just it's surprising to me that this one just keeps getting singled out. I don't. So now I'm really going down the tangent for this one.
Go ahead.
This is what I can tell you about for this song. This is the one that me and Dave referred to as the Weedly Wee song, because when we were talking about it, we're like, which one? The one that goes Weedly 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 Wee. So that became like our pet name for the song, the Weedly Wee song. That one to me, the way I felt about it when I first heard the demo, I'm like, all right, well, this is what it reminds me of, but I wasn't going to say anything unless it was brought up. And at some point, Didi and I were discussing it, and he was like, well, like we got the breaks, and it's going to be like the drum fills and like the bass things. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, well, think like that's like Maiden. Think like Maiden for that section. I'm like, well, that's funny that you mention that, because this song totally makes me think of like Paul Di'Anno Maiden. And so like there's like a couple of what the hell? It's off Prowler. There's two of the fills that literally like I ripped off note for note from Clive Burr from Prowler that I put in those breaks there. So that's the Maiden, the Maiden-esque tune of the record. Mm. It's a good song. It's just now that I'm trying to think about, I'm trying to airplay it in my head like really quickly, like fast forward through the song. It's not. I don't like to always have to view my music from a drum oriented standpoint, sure, because really it's not about that. It should always be about the song. But this song just stands out to me as one of those ones that isn't one of the ones that I would mention for my drumming on the record. But like I said, this interview, it's about the song. It's not about me. And the most important thing about being a drummer is playing for the song, not seeing how many cool fills I can freaking play. Not that there isn't a cool fill or whatever in it, but it's just that's not one of my top 5. Let's put it that way.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. Jeff, do you have the next one?
Well, I think you guys put out 10 songs on the album. How many songs did you guys record? Do you have any extra ones laying around you might release?
Let me just also say that I hope I just didn't destroy your favorite song on the record for you too.
No, man, we totally respect your opinion.
No, it's fun. It is kind of fun to hear those kind of opinions, because you think of it, band members have to come in and you might not like the songs that people throw in there, and you got to compromise and play something that somebody else wrote.
That would be like Neil Peart telling me that he hated natural science.
Yeah.
Like what?
All right.
All right. Anyways, going on. Moving on.
Yes.
Moving on.
Well, you guys put out 10 songs on the album. How many songs did you guys record for the album?
Oh, right. Were there any extra songs?
Yeah.
No, there were no extra songs. There were how many do we need? That's what we got.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend lately. I miss the days of the rare cuts and the B-sides. I think that's a lost art.
Most of the time, at least back in the day too, and I know everybody uses that term, but back in the day, you'd have about 10 songs, but you'd always used to have have to have 2 extra songs for Japan, usually for a Japan release. Mm-hmm. But to be honest with you, I think for me that ended with Shadows Fall, Fire from the Sky. I think we had 1 alternate song for that record. Because we didn't have any when I was in Flotsam. We didn't have any alternate songs. It was everything that was recorded, and then nothing in Overkill too. Everything that was recorded was on the record.
Very good. Well, you and the rest of the band of Overkill are preparing for a summer tour in support of Scorched. Can you give our listeners an insight to the touring schematics and where's the band going to be playing at?
It's a continuation, basically, of what we just did in Europe 2 months ago. Aside from obviously the European the European opening band. They were a Bion band. Won't be on the package, obviously, because that was just a European tour.
Sure.
But we're happy that we're taking Exhorter and Heathen out again. So it should be a really fun time of a lot of thrash and a lot of notes played.
Oh, fantastic!
The tour kicks off. Actually, it was a month from yesterday. July 13th kicks off at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. And it goes down the coast and then across down through Texas into Florida and back up the East Coast and ends in Long Island at the Paramount.
Oh, fantastic.
Huntington, Long Island, I believe, on the 30th of July.
Oh, fantastic. Well, with that being said, are there just certain venues in certain cities the band has to play in whenever there is a U.S. tour? Are there just certain places that you just have to play? You can't exclude them. For the band's, I guess, maybe stronghold in certain places?
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, it's more so, to be honest, it's more so markets that you have to play rather than venues. You know, when you've been in a band long enough, you know where you draw and you know where you don't draw. So most bands try to not go to the same places, but at least have, if you're doing a routing and you're only going to do 16 shows in 18 days or whatever, you're going to want to at least make 12 of those, your high paying ones. So if you got a clunker here and there, you're not going to lose your shirt. But as far as this one goes, we're going back to a lot of the places that we've played before as far as city-wise, but we're going to some different venues, though, this time as well. But then there's things like you said, there are those places that you have to play when you're going to certain cities. Like on this tour, for example, we go to Fort Lauderdale. I'm like, oh, we're probably playing the Culture Room, which that's where we're playing. Orlando, House of Blues. Masquerade in Atlanta. That's another, long time famous club, even though it's kind of remodeled and reopened now. It's beautiful compared to what it used to be. Still historic. The Chance in Poughkeepsie, that's another one. And on the West Coast, Anaheim, we usually play House of Blues, or we play the Grove. This time we're playing the Grove. We're playing a different place in Vegas this time. But, pretty much, I get to ask this question, too, because it's usually like, how come you're not playing, where we live or whatever? I'm like, well, it also got to do with who's going to pay the band money.
Exactly.
Because, if it doesn't matter, so there's always some kind of explanation about it. Oh, well, I was looking at your tour dates, and you have a day that's between Dallas and Seattle, so here's my buddy's club, so-and-so, and he said it's like, oh, it's not that easy, or it's, just like, it's like, there's a lot of things involved here.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the times, too, it happens. I've been in Overkill 6.5 years now, and I haven't played a show in Albany, which is where I live in New York. And the last time the band played here was literally 2 months before I joined, because the last time they played here was the show that I went to discuss joining the band. And I was like, oh, cool, packed house, my local club. This is awesome. Next time around, 6.5 years later, still never played here. We're finally playing here in October of this year. And I'm like, it's only taken about 7 years to play locally. But I've told people, I said, look, here's the deal. When the club that's an hour and 10 minutes down the road is going to pay the guarantee, guess where we're going?
Exactly.
And And then you get all the people that go, well, I got to drive to the show. And I just go, so do I.
Yeah. For sure. You guys worked with Zeus on your The Wings of War album, and I saw with Shadows Fall you're working on some new tracks with Zeus. Can you talk a little bit about working with him as a producer, mixer, how that works?
Absolutely. The guy I'm going to be sharing a house with for the next 4 days. Zeus kind of like, for the most part, we've always sort of like called him the sixth member of Shadows Fall because he's been around since day one. His old band, Push Button Warfare, that he was in with Paul, that they had, used to play shows with my old death metal band, Burning Human, years ago, years and years ago. I'm talking like in the mid-90s. So we go back a long ways just as friends, and this 130-mile radius that we live in here. But he's been there from day one. When I auditioned for Shadows Fall, I did it at his studio because that's where all their stuff was stored. We still have the recording of it, for Christ's sake, somewhere. And he did all of our records except for, well, he had a hand in all of them except for Fire from the Sky. Of One Blood, Art of Balance, War Within, produced and engineered all those. Fall from the War, produced and engineered. Retribution, he produced. No, he engineered it and then someone else produced it. It was the guy that did the vocals. The Elvis guy. And Threads of Life, he ended up mixing that, even though Nick produced it and recorded it, but he still mixed it. So Zeus, like I said, Fire from the Sky was the only one he wasn't involved in because he was too busy at that time when he was working with other projects. So he's always been involved with Shadows Fall in some way, shape, or form. Once this whole reunion thing kind of morphed from being just a one-show thing, he started, we started talking with him just to, because he was, like I said, he still lives, 2 minutes away from Paul. So it's like, all right, well, if you guys are getting back together, what's the next step? Are we making another record? And we're like, well, we don't know. And he's like, well, whatever we're doing, let's get on it. So kind of like we just sort of figured again, we don't have any money to pay you because we don't have any money because we don't have a record label or anything. But he's just like, well, let's just start doing this and let's do it together. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. We're just going to start recording some material that we have, and we're going to keep working at that as the year goes on.
Oh, nice. Very good.
As far as, that's as far as Shadows Fall goes with the Z-Man, as we refer to him. In Overkill, we got Zeus to mix The Wings of War. He had been talking with Overkill. I mean, Dee had been talking to him for a few records to get him to mix, but just their schedules just never coerced for whatever reason or another. Like I said, Zeus is pretty busy, especially in the last decade. He does a lot of work with Rob Zombie, so basically he's like at his beck and call for the most part because he's doing a lot of music and stuff for his soundtracks and stuff. So it's like a whole other world that he's involved in, which is great for him. It just worked out on that record that he was available. So for me, that was a really, really cool thing to have happen for my first album in a band, because immediately when I was told, well, I think we settled that we're going to get Zeus to mix it, immediately I was just like, I don't have to talk to this guy about my drums. He knows how I play. He knows what to listen to. I don't have to tell him to listen for shit. He's going to make sure it sounds good. There's not going to be any questions. If he has any questions, he'll just call me. So it was all the normal nervousness, producer, mixer, shit that I would normally have swirling around in my head was automatically not even there. I was like, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk.
Nice.
So then it just became phone calls with me and Zeus and me going, well, why does this still sound like this? Well, because Dee Dee said, I'm like, oh, all right, the boss wins. so it was good. It was comfortable. This time around, he was in the running for it this time around too, but they wanted to work with Colin Richardson again for, I forgot what the last time they worked. I knew they worked with him a few times prior, but I knew they were pretty much hell bent on trying to get him to work on this one. So once they locked him in, Zeus was kind of like, the runner up in case, it didn't work out, but whatever. All intents and purposes, everybody's still working, and I got Zeus, tomorrow with Shadows Fall. So,
nice.
Fantastic.
It all worked out. Ironically enough, he might be mixing this other side project at Dee Dee's, this other record that I did with him. He's got like this punk band thing that we did a record, and he might have Zeus mix that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let's talk about Shadows Fall a little bit more. The band hasn't released an album since 2012. The band's been dormant for, the last 10, 11 years or so. Can you talk a little bit more about the band reuniting and writing and recording new music?
Blabbermouth started reporting that I was saying we were getting back together in 2019, which I never said.
Hey,
what I said was, I would love for that to happen, but it just wasn't feasible. And actually, at that point, I was lying, because we did have a show. We had a show booked we had the Palladium booked for 2020, for December 2020. And I think it was like a NAMM interview in at the top of 2020. I was like, well, something might happen. You never know. And all of a sudden it's like, Jason Bittner announces Shadows Fall reunion. I'm like, no, that's not what I didn't do that. But like usual, Blabbermouth will take any comment and make it a headline.
Yes, they will.
So anyways, we did have the Palladium booked out for 2020, and we were going to do a reunion show, but like we have already addressed about 25 minutes ago, we know what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
So the reunion was squashed. But ironically, it was kind of good, because the pandemic, once we were able to start traveling and stuff, like going state to state and stuff, we started rehearsing again, because we're like, well, fuck it. If we're all home on this pandemic, let's at least start playing. Because what happened was, after 2020, the Palladium said, well, we're going to hold the date for you for 2021 if that's cool. We're like, yeah, let's do that. So we knew we were still going to have to do this show eventually. So we just started picking away at rehearsing again while we had the time. And then once, people slowly started creeping back into touring life, and John was, finally going back out with Anthrax, I was doing things with Overkill. We had just, kept working at it when we could. But after the first reunion show in 2021, the Palladium show, what happened was it was funny, because with this, the way we looked at this, the first reunion show, the way we looked at it was like, well, look, we're going to play a show, and really that was it. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, we might put all this time and effort into this, and we go, okay, it was a one-time shot. We had a great time. Awesome. Mm-hmm. We might go, yeah, that lit the fire under our ass. Let's do something else. If we have time, let's do it. So turns out, and we were like, well, let's play the show first and see what happens. So it turns out that we had 2 more festivals booked for 2022 before we even played the reunion show in 2021 at the Palladium. Nice. We had already had Blue Ridge and Furnace Fest booked for the next year. We're like, well, shit, this better go down, because now we got 2 more shows. So after we got the other 2 festival offers, and we got an offer for something overseas too, but we just weren't available to do it, because it was either me or John weren't available because of the other bands. And we also said that if we were going to do Shadows Fall, that we would always commit to being the actual band and not being Shadows Fall with some guy has to fill in for John or some guy has to fill in for Jason because they're with their other bands. We said no. If we can't be the five of us, then we say no to it. So that's worked in our favor because it makes the shows also more special because it's not like, hey, we're going back out and going on tour. We're going to do special stuff when time permits and our schedules permit. So we had these other couple festivals, and then we just kept saying, well, we're going to have to, rehearse for these festivals. So then we just, one day John's got a couple riffs. Want to just jam on something? Sure. So that was probably, I think that was like 6 or 7 months ago. So we're half a year later, we're going in with at least a half an album's worth of material right now.
Oh, awesome.
Fantastic. Well, with you being in so many different metal bands, that being Overkill and Shadows Fall, and et cetera, but can you compare and contrast getting in the studio and recording Overkill music opposed to getting in the studio and recording Shadows Fall music?
There's really, to be quite honest with you, at this point, there's really no difference with that because I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna do the same thing that I would do in the studio, no matter what band I'm in, what artist I'm working for, what session I'm doing. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna warm up, and I'm gonna record for the longest time that I can physically do it without my energy going or my energy waning or pain starting to set in or something. Once my takes are not 110% anymore because I can feel it when I play and I can also hear it in the take as well. I go, it's good, but it's not as good as it can be. I know if I just wait till tomorrow and get some sleep and food in me, I'll be a lot better tomorrow, so let's do it tomorrow. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to record for like 3 hours straight. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to change my clothes, and then we're going to take the next half a day in the studio, and we're going to edit what I did that day. Now, the only parameter with Overkill is sometimes I can tend to be a glutton in the studio. I mean, some guys do 1 song a day, 2 songs a day. I've done full albums in one day. I've done some 7 songs in one day, whatever. If I'm on a roll, I like to keep going. If I feel good, if the energy's there, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Like, yeah, but you did 4 songs already. I don't care. I'll do 5. Because sometimes I'm like, let me hit the ball out of the park if I'm still hitting the ball good. And then if we have 5 days to do drums and I did 5 songs the first day and then the second day I don't feel like playing, no big deal. We'll take that day and do all the editing. So, but like I said, with Overkill, there's a caveat with that because when I went to do the first record with them, I told Dee Dee how I like to do things. And I like to just go in there and record what I can do until my body's done and then go edit from there. And he's like, yeah, that's great. He goes, but I don't. And I said, I can do. He's like, how many songs you want to do? I'm like, I'm anywhere from 2 to 6. Depends on how I feel. It's like, whoa, no. He's like, let's just do no more than 3 a day. I'm like, okay. And I think it was actually one day where he actually let me do 4 because things were going really good. But for Wings of War, we didn't do any more than 3 a day.
Oh, very good.
So we did 3, took a day to edit and then finished up the next 3 or something like that. But when I did Scorched, all bets were off because I was doing the drums remotely up here at my friend's studio, and Dee Dee was in Jersey on the Zoom call. And I'd go, all right, well, I'm going to go. What are you going to edit? No, I'm going to go record another song. You did 3 already today. It doesn't matter. You're not here to tell me no. Because at least, I was still in the studio for 5 days, but at least with that one, I was making the schedule. It wasn't me, Dave, and Dee Dee having to make the schedule because all 3 of us weren't physically in the studio. So with that one, I would just cut the drums. I'd take all day tracking, and I just told Dee Dee, I said, look, I'm just going to put together a track of what I think is the best sounding take with the best fills, and then I'm going to send it to you. If you have any questions or ideas or try something different, then let me sit on it overnight, and then the next day I'll make those fixes, and then we'll be done. And he's like, all right, and that's the way we did Scorched. And nice. it was easy to do it that way. But probably with Zeus tomorrow, tomorrow we'll be getting mostly, the first day will be loading our shit in, because he's got to load a lot of his outboard gear in as well, along with my actual physical drums. He's got stuff to load in and set up too. So if we're, loading in at 11, if we're set up and making any kind of sounds by 2 or 3, if we even, if we're recording, it'll be probably in the afternoon tomorrow, but it'll probably just end up being more of a setup day and, making sure things sound killer and then knock everything out over the next couple days.
Fantastic. Jeff, you got the next
Well,
question.
when you have been in the studio with the other members of the band, we talked to some drummers who they record their drum part and then they're out of there. How does it work for you? Do you stick around and see how the other tracks are going, or how's it work?
It depends on the band, and it depends on where the band is recording and where I am at that time.
Yeah.
With Shadows Fall, I would do my drums. The first few records, I would go back to Massachusetts and hang out sometimes for the guitar tracking, because you're talking about I still got to drive 90 minutes to get back there. So if I don't need to be there, I don't know if I need to drive 90 minutes to watch Matt and John play The Light That Blinds 47 times in the studio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I would always drop in, and, if they wanted me to be there or something, sure. But it was normally all right, I'm going to let you guys do your thing because that's what you do. I don't need to be there to watch that. When we were doing Wings of War, Blitz was doing his vocals at a studio by his house, which is actually closer to me than it is to the rest of the guys in Jersey. So I went down one day when he was tracking something just to hang out. If it's something else, mostly sessions and stuff, I'm just doing my drums and I get the hell out. Unless it's a band where a few instances of where I produce the record or something, of course, obviously I'm there 24/7 for whatever's happening. But generally for recordings, I kind of don't want to be there because I like people to have their space. It depends on how certain people are in the studio. I could give a shit if the room is full or if there's nobody there. It's like playing live. I'm used to playing in front of people. Would I rather just be there with the engineer and not the whole band going, "Oh, is your time in tune?" or whatever? Yeah, I actually would. Go home. You don't need to be here right now.
Very good. Well, I have one last question for you, and then we'll leave you alone for the evening. Deal?
No problem.
All right. So the mystery of rock and roll, it's not what it used to be. The dawning of the internet and social media has taken the mystery out of rock and roll. But, if we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't be doing this with you tonight. But for you as the musician and the fan, what do you prefer? The mystique and mystery of rock and roll, or do you like this new age of accessibility?
No, fuck the new age of accessibility. No, I hate it. I don't like it. I like it in certain aspects. You know when I like it? I like it when someone has reached out to me and something I've done in a band or my drumming has really touched them in a certain way or helped them. That's awesome.
Yeah. Or
if someone uses the internet to hire me for a session or something, I think that's great too. But I don't like the fact that you have to know every single step of what I'm doing right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, are your drums done yet for the new record? Well, you'll know when they're done when they're done. Mm-hmm. This is how I always look at it. I look at this. I remember right before Iron Maiden. Now I'm going to date myself now as being a 53-year-old jaded old musician. I remember right before Iron Maiden put Peace of Mind out, they released Flight of Icarus. Mm-hmm. And that was the first song they released from the record, like a few weeks or whatever it was before the record. That's all you got. You didn't get a behind-the-scenes DVD on how Peace of Mind was recorded at Compass Point in the Bahamas or wherever the hell they were at that point. You didn't get any of that. But you know what you did get? You read the liner notes in the record when you were sitting there listening to the LP, and you went, oh, recorded by Martin Birch at Compass Point in Nassau, Bahamas. Wow, they must have had an awesome time there. And there's the mystique, and there's the mystery. And And nowadays, all the fun that they had there probably would be plastered all over Facebook. Oh, here's Iron Maiden drunk walking through the streets of Nassau, Bahamas. You know, it's just like, it's shit like that where if we're talking just about rock and roll, social media does not allow the rock and roll scene to be rock and roll anymore. In my opinion.
Fair enough.
Without changing it into TMZ.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Absolutely. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
Not that I can think of right this very second.
Okay, very good. Well, this is how things are going to work out. When Jeff, the editing wizard over here, gets it all cleaned up, we'll send the link to you immediately. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, guys.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah. You have a great night. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
the grip of nights. if they ever take from you, then you plug